everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Next in Time podcast. I'm your host, St. Tangarala, and today our guest is none other than the beloved Steve Walsh. If you want to know more about him, he is the founder of Hands On Angel, who is who's basically what we call an angel investment fund. And Steve is someone who has invested in over 60 early stage startups, helping them raise millions of dollars in capital. And he uses the unique hands-on approach where he is involved very personally with the company to make sure growth and success is happening, and then using that to set them apart from other competitors out there. And as my main interests include fintech, crypto, gaming, Web3, and then B2B SaaS. So Steve, welcome to the show.
Hey man, thanks for having me. I'm glad we were able to do this, and that was pretty good. I'm going to have you introduce me from now on. That was awesome.
No, I think maybe I could. I wish I could introduce you because you got a very impressive pedigree of how you put yourself in there, and then you've been putting your money. And then I'm also glad that I've interviewed your friend Scott a few episodes ago, episode 8.
Sure.
And that was
Scott and I met because we both invested in that platform Entra that we do the investor office hours on. That's how we get to know each other. And he's just a good dude. He's been doing it longer than I have, and I've picked up a lot of things from Scott. So he's a good man.
Like, what do you feel like Scott is? Like, he's someone very knowledgeable. He knows what's going on in terms of how to invest as an angel, or what's the case?
Yeah, I would just I always just think of Scott's an adult in the room, right? Like, he's a seasoned guy. He's seen a lot. What I love is he was a founder himself. So he saw all of the trials and tribulations of being a founder, and then all the way to where he exited his company and sold it. And now he's on the investor side where he looks at helping other founders in the next generation. So I think Scott has just a great perspective on when a founder says to Scott, "You don't understand how hard it is." He's like, "Really? Because I grew my own company all the way up to exiting it and selling it. And now I'm in it." So he understands the whole life cycle of a company, starting it, growing it, selling it, and now investing in it. And I think that's very rare. You don't always see that.
Yeah.
So I think the way Scott approaches it is, how can I use the knowledge that I've gleaned over all these years and impart that on founders so maybe they don't make the same mistakes I made, or maybe they make less of them so they can go faster. I just think he has the right approach.
Yeah, because I see that with Scott. I mean, I don't want to. Usually, this is probably the first podcast where I'm really talking about another person that we have already interviewed some before. So,
Sure.
but I really understand that he is someone who's got the wealth and knowledge of what he's doing. Sometimes I I remember putting him onto the pedestal, like why. I asked him plenty of challenging questions here and there, like why you do this, why you do that. If you want to listen to that other episode, you're always welcome to maybe listen to kind of like that grilling session that I gave Scott.
You're gonna go easy on me though, right?
No, that's fine. You're good. You're good, Steve. But anyways, so right now you like in your mind, because you really focus more on giving that in like personal touch whenever you're working with the founder. So how is it like and give me an example of what you've done in terms of providing that personal touch.
I think, what I always say is, when I get involved in a company, there's really no such thing as a bad question. And if I don't understand how to help the founder in that area, there's probably someone in my network that does. That's the advantage of me being a little older. So when a founder calls me and says, "Do you know an attorney that can help me at the earliest stages that isn't going to be $1,000 an hour and isn't going to screw me?" I'm like, "Yeah, I know 2 or 3 of them. I'm happy to introduce you." Or if they're like, "Steve, I don't really understand how to build a sales strategy or comp plans. Can you help me think through that?" I can help them with that because I've done that for 30 years. So I think what I try to do, ST, which is the personal touch, is I don't just say, "No, I don't know how to do that, and this is my wheelhouse, and I only play in my wheelhouse." I have an innate ability that if a founder has a question or a challenge, I can pretty much decipher pretty quickly who in my network can help them solve that. If it's not me, who can I refer them to that can help them? And I don't think everybody out there is willing to go to that next level of being willing to pick up the phone and calling someone in their network and saying, "I have a great founder. He's got this problem. I really think you can help him. Would you mind if I made an introduction? Would you take a half an hour and talk to them?" I think that's the personal attention. I try to really hone in on, what are the things you need help on? What are the resources in my network that can help you? And am I willing to reach out and connect those dots? Not just via an email, but via text or picking up the phone and calling, and making sure that I don't just do the, blind copy someone, hey, Steve, meet ST, I'm done. I want to make sure that whoever I put them in front of is really going to have a vested interest in helping them. And I think that's the personal attention I try to give the founders that I work with.
So how many founders have you? I think you've worked with 60 like early stage founders, right?
61 companies so far. Those 61 companies have raised a combined $900 million in capital, which is awesome. I have not been responsible for all that capital. I've played a piece. But
If only you could just get like a small, tiny piece of that capital.
yeah, and six of them have exited so far, which I'm very proud of. And I just say I serve at the pleasure of the founders I get to work with. Like they're the ones building the company, they're the ones with the vision. I just get to introduce them to some cool people along the way that can help them do it faster. That's really how I see myself.
Got it. And so tell me, like I said, I was going to ask you more about like your overall background because you said because I've looked the fact that you've been working in telecom and communication and like in these large like telecom companies, and then you had like what 30 years of experience. Now tell me about more about that background that you had that got you into this.
Yeah, I mean, it was I got into this by accident. I was really a 25, 30-year operator. I'm a recovering operator. I spent time in big tech with companies like Cox Communications and Comcast. Comcast, the largest broadband company in the world. And I was one of the early people that helped them build their B2B division, their business to business division from inception and launched things like fiber services. And we built it really from inception to about a $10 billion business over about an 11-year period. And that was a lot of fun. It was fast. It was growing. But, up until about 5 years ago, it was great. But then once the business is $10 billion and I had 200 people working for me, and I had a fantastic assistant who's a friend of mine to this day, whose entire job was to lead me from meeting to meeting to meeting all day and tell me out of the 1,000 emails I would get, which 200 were the most important I had to pay attention to. And that was like her whole role because it was just chaotic. And that just got old.
Oh, that
And
was
I, and I
that was Comcast. That was Comcast or Cox.
That was Comcast. That was the last year's account. And I was just like, I've sort of done enough of this. And it was great. And it was really a great role to be an operator and build stuff. But I really wanted to try to give something to the next generation and go work with early stage founders. And I had capital, which was great. But I didn't want to just write checks and be like, hey, ST, here's some money. I hope you build a good company. Let me know if I can help. I was like, if I'm going to give you money from my family, I have a fiduciary responsibility to try to make you wildly successful. So how can I do that? Well, I can deploy these resources in my network to help you do that. So I took all my experience as an operator building and growing companies and said, how can I go help people that are building startups? Because I have all this knowledge on how to build P&Ls and run businesses and all the things that they're going to have to run into. I could leverage my big corporate experience and help them do that in a smaller version. So that's really how I get into this and how my career really evolved over time.
So it was like you found like before you went into the telecom, do you feel like were you always like someone very passionate about the business side of things?
Yeah, I always wanted to be a business leader. I always wanted to be in a growth business. I always wanted to have some sort of a sales and operational aspect of what I was doing. I'm really a people person at heart. So I liked dealing with customers and growing customer relationships. And I think I have a knack for doing that. That's how I saw myself. Even out of college, like I went right into sales out of college and have always had that sales lens my entire career, my entire life of how can I bring people and products together to bring value? And it's been a lot of fun.
The funny thing is you graduated from my alma mater, like UMass
UMass
Amherst.
Amherst.
Yeah, so it's kind of like we have some sort of a connection in a way. It's like, okay, that's kind of like a mutual connection there.
And here's the funny thing, ST. I purposely went to a state school like my brother didn't. My brother went private. My dad was a state school graduate himself. And I didn't want to, I went there for two reasons. One, I loved the school, but more importantly, I didn't want to have a lot of loans when I graduated. I didn't want to have a lot of debt. And I'm like, it in my mind, and I'm not saying this is the right opinion, it's simply mine. I didn't think that where I went really mattered. I think it mattered what I did with the degree afterwards and what I made of myself. And that has come to fruition. And I think I got an unbelievable education. I met my wife there. And I have some friends that to this day are lifelong friends. And it's just a special place. I go back there every year a couple times.
Yeah,
For games.
We should have a trip soon, like maybe next year, like
Yeah,
with both of
it's
us. Just
fun, man. And I have just found that It was a great decision for me. And I don't know, I never felt that what the education was aligned with what I paid for it, meaning I didn't have to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to get a quality education. I think I got a great education for the money I paid. And I think I've put it to pretty good use. So hopefully I've made my parents proud.
Yeah, but I would say because when you had that education back then, I presume it was like what, a couple $1,000s a year for
My
tuition?
last year at UMass was $8,000.
Eight
And I was an
thousand dollars.
RA, so I got free room and board at the same time. So I actually cut it in half, which was great.
Yeah, I wish I really made that mistake of not being an RA back. Now I have to now you got to pay the
The
price for
best
it.
gig going, man. And they paid me because that you had to work shifts. So they paid me. So I had my on-campus job at the same time. So I'm like, I'm getting free room and board. They're paying me like I have a job. I'm like, this is fantastic. It was the best. My brother was an RA, which sort of gave me the idea. And you got to put up with some crap, but I'm like, who cares? I'm saving thousands of dollars a year. This is awesome.
But yeah, also coming back to like, it's kind of the funny thing because UMass is now ranked in one of the top universities right now in the country. So like before it was like, okay, it was like a decent university, but now it's like kind of top tier. And so I
Top
feel like
100 business schools in the country now.
yeah, top 100 business schools in the country. And so that's like, it's like somehow it just got paid off somewhere in the middle. That's
I'm
what I
not
think.
100% sure I could get into the business school now. I'm really not. Like,
All
it is
right.
very competitive to get into that business school. I would have never thought it.
Yeah, I couldn't get even back then. I was trying to transfer my degree from my current for actually I used to be a CS major, but then I switched
Yep.
over. I was going to switch over to business, but then they couldn't get me in. I couldn't get into the business schools because my grades weren't that great. So
Sure.
I had to switch over to econ, and I kind of had to stick with that. And that's the only way I can do business classes.
Right.
So
Right.
you had to do something very, yeah, you had to be very savvy and smart as to how you can maximize your experience. That's kind of what I did in my time at UMass.
I love it, man.
But anyways, so yeah, I'm sorry. I think we kind of like got sidetracked about
That's okay.
our mutual experience at our alma mater. But yeah, tell me about like I was going to ask you about about your experience with an angel. Like you said you basically transitioned from working in large corporations to now working with just these with startups. And
Yep.
so, you founded Hands On Angel, and
Mhm.
now that's your fund, or is it that your company? What do you classify that as?
It's my company. So it's what I do, my consulting work that I work with startups, helping them raise venture capital, helping them with some business development and partnership work and some sales strategy. It's also where I do all my investing. So one feeds the other. It's some of the startups I'm helping with strategy, some of them I'm investing in, some of them I invested in a prior round. I'm helping them raise a new round. It just depends upon their needs. And it's all done under the Hands On Angel brand. And I think what founders like is I'm not real rigid on how I work with founders. Like, some of them need me for certain things and not others, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Some of them are further along. Some of them already completed their raise and they just want me to help them with some partnerships. So I try to be real malleable with the founders and just work on areas that they need me to help them with. And I do it all under the Hands On Angel brand, and it's a lot of fun. And I'm very fortunate.
Yeah, and also you mentioned on your LinkedIn, you're someone who really likes, fintech, like these five areas: fintech,
Yeah.
crypto, Web3, SaaS, and gaming. And so
Mm-hmm.
what are your ways, like what are the reasons why you decide to really, delve into those areas?
I think B2B SaaS, because I spent my whole career in business to business sales. So I know a lot about monthly recurring business models, rinse and repeat SaaS products because I've sold them. So that was that. Fintech and is really comes from a love of investing in money and understanding how money moves and payment systems. And crypto and blockchain go with that because I have a belief that the blockchain can solve for a lot of problems when it comes to money around the world. In the world, there's 8 billion people. 2 billion people in the world right now have no access to banking. They don't have a bank
Right.
account. They can't get a bank account. And I think that fintech and the blockchain can solve a lot of that. So I'm into that. And then on the gaming and esports side, I'm a big sports person. I love sports. I love gaming. I love esports. I love sports betting.
Yeah.
And I actually own a part of a company called Cold Hard Football Facts, which is a analytics company that allows you to be able to understand NFL stats using some proprietary algorithms to pick winners. And a lot of famous folks like Adam Schefter uses it. He's a subscriber. And this is a Boston company that I was lucky enough to, with a couple of friends of mine, buy a controlling interest in a few years ago. So I spent a lot of time in the sports betting space. I'm a kind of a sports nut. I grew up in Boston, so
I mean, hey, I guess, yeah, Boston. I think the funny thing is when I went to UMass, it was like the peak of Boston sports. You know, you had the Red Sox winning the World Series, you got the Patriots winning twice. I mean, this is what during my time between the 2013 2017, where okay, you got the Red Sox winning the World Series, you got the Patriots winning the Super Bowl, and
Yep.
and then now I think the Celtics are coming out of the woodwork.
Yeah, for me, it's so where I spend my time, ST, is areas that I either have expertise or passion around. Because what I find is when you do things that you know well or things that you're passionate about, it really doesn't feel like work. It doesn't, because I'm working on things that I care about. And that's really why over the years, I've tried to narrow my scope of what I work on. So it's only stuff that I really care about or stuff that I'm really good at.
Yeah, because you mentioned on your profile that okay, these are the 5 areas that interest you, but you don't really but you're not interested in cannabis, direct to consumer, prop tech, and all that.
Yeah, I think when you try to be such a big generalist, it becomes hard to go deep and really to have that quote unquote hands-on approach with people, because it's tough to know everything about everything. Like I'm not, I want to say I'm not that smart, but it's hard to be an expert in every area. So by narrowing it down to things that I have a lot of knowledge in and passion around, I just find I can bring more value in those areas. That's really how I look at it.
Sounds good. So in terms of what you've worked with, tell me about those 6 exits that you had 6 successful exits with these companies that you've worked with.
Yeah.
So what do you see in a founder that kind of gives you that feeling that okay, they're going to be successful, like this person's going to be it,
That's
this
a really
person's headed
good
for an exit?
question. Look, at the end of the day, nobody knows what's going to work, which is why you got to place a lot of bets. Like I've done a bunch of investing with Jason Calacanis, who's probably one of the most successful angel investors in the world. And he was like the first or second check into Uber because he knew Travis Kalanick when Uber started. And he says it himself. And he turned $100,000 into $100 million off of that company. But when he met with Travis the first time, he's like, little black cars driving around the city, like this is a stupid idea. But he knew Travis was a winner. And he said, if you can ever get by the regulatory hurdles and the taxi companies not suing the pants off of you, this is a big idea. And he knew that Travis was just going to win. When I look at the people and the founders that I've worked with that have exited, when I met them, I was like, okay, the idea is okay, but it's really hard. But I would just keep going back to, but this founder's just going to win. I see them working really hard. I see them running through walls for their companies. I see them not taking no for an answer and just keep iterating and iterating and iterating. And that was it. That was the reason in almost every case that I made the investment. It wasn't because I thought the product was great or the product was going to be the next TikTok. It was because I just was like, even if this product doesn't win, this person's going to win. And that's what you're betting on. And that's really what it is, because products come and go, but the people are what really build these successful companies. And when you look at companies that exit, they just had founders that just, you meet them and you're like, this founder's just going to win the day.
Right. Because I think like in terms of that, like, I mean, you worked with these founders more closely in a way. Like we've seen their tenacity, you've seen their vision and their mission of what they're building. And so let's just say, for example, how do you know this person is a successful founder, but the other person is not? I mean, I know, let's say they have the greatest idea. Let's say they have the greatest idea in the world. They have all the hard work and they have the tenacity, they have all this stuff, but then they end up not going in the direction they want to go. Like, how do you forecast that in a way with founders?
I think the biggest way a lot of times is coachability. Founders can be great at building product. They can be great, but to build a venture scale company, it can't be just you. It just can't. That you can't physically do everything yourself. And I have had to have some candid conversations with those founders that it's all about me and my vision, and I have to do everything, and it's a control thing. And the founders that are able to scale and get exits are founders that go, I have to be willing to surround myself with people that know as much as I do, if not more. I have to be willing to give up control so the company can grow and scale. And I have to be willing to listen to feedback. What I tell founders is, you don't have to do anything that I tell you, but I'd like you to hear everything I tell you, take it in and understand how it applies to your company. And are there any nuggets that you can apply to what you're doing? The founders that understand that, I think, are the ones that win. That's at least been my experience. They appreciate the guidance. It doesn't mean they're going to do everything I say. It just means they're going to hear what I say and understand how it applies to them. That's the difference, I think, ST, between the founders that do okay and the founders that really succeed, is they understand they can't do it alone. They have to be a little vulnerable. They have to surround themselves with people that can help them and be open to that help. They can't just be all about, they're the smartest person in the room and they're not going to listen to anybody. That's the difference.
Because I read that somewhere. I think it was from Robert Kiyosaki that it's not successful individuals that create strong businesses. It's successful teams. Like, business is a team sport, and you're not the best of the. You cannot be the PhD or the Einstein of the business. You have to be like you have to be the dumbest guy, but surrounded by the smartest people.
I'm with you, man. I have this adage that, like, I just like hanging out with people that are a lot smarter than me, not because it makes me look smart. It just lets me learn more. It just does. You have to be a constant learner to be successful. You just do. I'm 51 years old. I'm learning every day. I just am. I always want to learn. And a lot of the founders that I hang out with and I learn from are half my age, but they're incredibly smart. And I'm like, you're doing what? It's just, to me, it keeps me young because it's just a lot of fun. It just is.
Is it true that maybe if you hang out with younger people, your outlook is more your outlook in life is more fresh?
I think so. I mean, I'm a 50. Like, when I tell people I'm into crypto and the blockchain, they're like, "What?" And people my age, my friends, they're like, "You're into what?" And I'm like, yeah, half my founders that are building companies in this, they're like, 25, 30 years old. It's great. Like, I go to the Bitcoin conference and everyone's there, like, is half my age. It's hysterical. But I don't look at it as a negative. I look at it as a positive. I'm getting an insight into the next generation of how I think money's going to move, which is really cool.
Yeah. So tell me about how you, because I think I already talked about your business, how you like what you do, but tell me about how you operate as a person. That's why I wanted to really think like.
Yeah. I mean, I'm very much a creature of habit. I think that comes from my corporate days of structure. Now I could lead a structureless life because the company is me. I run the whole company with a laptop, a cell phone, and a Zoom account, and I work all over the world. But I'm a creature of habit. Like, if I am, and it's little things like, I'm in the gym from 7 to 9 every day. Every day. I get to the gym at 7 and I'll leave around 9. And I won't do my first call till 10. And I'm religious about that because I have an opinion that I can't be my best self for my family and for my clients and for my founders if I don't start every day just centering myself on me. And to me, that starts with health and well-being. So I'm in the gym 5-6 days a week from 7 to 9. And I will not do a call. And if someone wants me before 10, I'm like, I'm going to be at the gym. We can do a call while I'm on the treadmill. You're going to be hearing noise in the background, and I'm fine doing it. But this is my jam. I don't waver on that for anything because it gets my mind set for the day. And then 10 o'clock's my first call. I do lunch between 12 and 1. I don't book any appointments between then. I pick my son up at high school at 3 o'clock. I just have set things I do every day. But I also we'll do a call with a founder like this at 7 o'clock at night. I'll do a call with a founder in the Far East at 11 o'clock because it's his morning. So I try to be flexible to support my founders, but I'm very regimented in my own life in how I lead my life. And that starts with a commitment to health, a commitment to my family, and then a commitment to my founders. And I think I try to have perspective and order around all of that. I'm really regimented in that. I've got a to-do list. I mean, little things that I picked up when I was 20 something years old. I use little to-do lists. They used to be on sticky notes, but now they're on my laptop because you have the notes thing on your laptop you can do. I make a list of priorities for the day. I cross them off as I do them, and anything I don't finish becomes number one on the list for the next day. And I've done this religiously for the last 30 years, and it allows me to be super productive.
Got it. That's yeah, that's a very impressive way of really structuring yourself. And because, but in terms of like right now, because one of the companies you're invested with is Entra. Like, as I mentioned, how I met you, how I've got to know Scott better and how he thinks. But what is your way of like thinking of how you invest? Like, why'd you get involved with Entra? Like, what do you see coming for in the next couple of years with Entra?
When I got involved with Entre with Michael, what I saw was a better way or a next generation way to network for entrepreneurs and creators, where entrepreneurs and creators could create community, host events, and ultimately keep more of the money from those events and monetize a better way. Like, one of the challenges with a lot of the platforms, whether it's LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, etc., is they take a massive percentage of an entrepreneur creator's money, like in some cases 20-30%, if you monetize on their platforms. Michael's like, there has to be a better way. And every creator or freelancer or entrepreneur has to have all these different platforms. Like, they have a LinkedIn account, then they have a Zoom membership, then they have a Slack membership, then they have a Discord membership. They have all these memberships. They're paying all over the place, and it's hard to manage. And Michael was just like, why can't we just build one place where people can come, do all that stuff, have a cool community, retain a lion's share of their revenue, and just get their business done? And I'm like, you're not solving one problem, you're solving like 5 problems, and you're taking on 5 different industries at once. And I looked at it and said, almost like the Travis Kalanick comment with Uber, you're really kicking around in the sandbox with some big dogs. If you can pull this off and do it well, this could be a big company. And that's what I saw. And then I saw Michael, and I met Michael and just saw how he's iterated over time and just works really hard, and he really bootstrapped the hell out of it. And I made a bet on Michael, and I was like, let me help you. Let me help you raise money. Let me help you get some partners. Let me help you grow your community, which is why I host investor office hours there with Scott. And that's what I saw. And that's really why I ended up coming into the round, and I've been helping Michael ever since.
So where do you see it going? I think in the next couple of years with not just Entra, but also with Hands On.
Where I see Michael going is, I think if he stays focused and executes, I think he could build this into a really big platform with hundreds of thousands of users on. I mean, he thinks he can get to 1 million users. That would be really cool. I think he can get to 100,000 users in the next couple of months, which is unbelievable. I bet Michael, I think he had 5,000 users. To get to 100,000, that just blows my mind. So I think he's going to continue to grow. I think he's really focused on building this into a big company, which I love. Where do I see Hands On Angel going? I think over time, it's more founders. It's building an ecosystem around Hands On Angel that continues to help founders at scale, continues to help them raise money, help them grow, help them exit. And just, and I think what's going to happen for me over time is I'm going to start doing this outside of the US as well. I've got my first engagements I'm doing now in Europe. I'm doing one in Australia. I've got some stuff going on in Vietnam. I would have never thought 4 or 5 years ago I would have been doing this on a global scale. But now there's been interest from folks in other countries. So I'm going, why not? Why limit myself to just doing this in the US? And now, because of technology, I'm able to do that. So that's where I see the Hands On brand going, is more of a global scale over the next couple of years, which is really exciting.
Cool. And so last but not least, what's the one advice would you give founders or anyone who's looking to really make an impact in what they're doing?
Just start doing it. I mean, honestly, ST, 4 or 5 years ago when I started this, I had no vision for my brand, my company, the work I do. I just said, I'm just going to start meet founders and find ways to help them and make introductions. This all started because of that. And then a couple of the founders that I became really close with were like, you're really good at this. Like, can you come work with us more formally as a consultant or do some stuff with us? Maybe be an advisor to us. And I'm like, I had never considered that. It was their idea, not mine. And then once I did it for one, I did it for two. And next thing you know, stuff just started to happen. I had more clients and I was doing raises. And I was like, this can't be an off the side of the desk thing. Then I started, thinking of a brand. And I was on a podcast like this in Australia, of all places. And somebody said to me, you have really this hands-on approach. You're like this hands-on angel. And that's when the light bulb went off. And my brother was actually watching the podcast. He goes, that's it. That's you. That's your brand. That's the website. That's everything. And so that's how it all happened. It was by accident, but it started because I just said, let me just start doing things. I think everybody wants everything to be perfect. They want their product to be perfect. They want their brand established. They want to have it all nice in a nice, neat package. I didn't do that. I said, before I had all of this stuff, I'm like, I'm just going to start meeting with founders and helping them. And then stuff just started to happen. And then I decided to develop the brand and the company around it. But I just started doing stuff. And I think so many people they wait. They want everything to be perfect. It's never going to be perfect. It's never going to be the right time.
Yeah.
Just start doing stuff and it will just happen.
Yeah, perfection is the enemy of success.
It just is. Like, I wasn't perfect and I fumbled a bunch of stuff in the beginning, but you know something? You get better, you learn, you iterate.
Yeah, it's the same thing with my podcast. Like, this is now episode 22 or 23. Now, like, I think this might be episode 23, but now I've done 23 episodes so far. Like, the first one was like, I didn't know what the heck I was doing. And then a couple episodes later, I'm getting better. I can start carrying the interview better. Now I'm starting to really involve myself better in the interview process. It's kind of like, I'm starting to realize now my skills start getting better and better from the feedback I've received from people and basically when you combine all that, yeah, I feel like the way I do my podcast has changed.
Absolutely. You just get better over time. But the hardest part is deciding to start. If you can get by that, everything else just falls into place.
All right, cool. All right, cool, Steve. Yeah, I think we're running out of time. I just want to thank you again for coming on the Next in Time podcast and giving us all the insights. And I'm looking forward to seeing how Hands On and even Entra become in the next coming years.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I'll see you on Entra in the next couple of days.
Hopefully so.